Assalamualaikum guys. This is the last video for the year 2020. The topic is topic 9, 10 tips for successful public speaking. You can see this on page 24 in your module. Feeling some nervousness before giving a speech is natural and healthy. It shows that you care about doing well, but too much nervousness can be detrimental. Study the PowerPoint presentation. Jadi semua dah siap. Speech dah siap. Lepas tu apa lagi? PowerPoint dah siap. Menggunakan nota-nota yang saya berikan sebelum ni. PowerPoint awak cantik, ada 12 muka surat, menggunakan grafik yang sesuai, tajuk sesuai, semua sesuai lah. Sekarang ni tinggal nak present. So itulah, kita tengok video yang ni. Okay, we continue with this PowerPoint presentation. Know the room. Be familiar with the place in which you will speak before your presentation. You can walk around the room or speaking area. This will ensure that you have everything you need before you give your presentation and shows the audience that you are prepared. You can also practice using the podium, microphone and any other visual aids. Kita tahu, bilik yang kita nak present tu, kelas yang kita nak present tu, dewan, jangan itulah kali pertama kita pergi ke situ. Bila kita dah rasa familiar, kita rasa dah biasa dengan tempat ni, jadi kita tak takut. So, know the room. Ask yourself these questions when scanning the room. Tanya diri awak, bila awak tengok bilik tu dia set up macam mana, audio visual equipment dia macam mana, cukup tak space, kawasan untuk awak berjalan ke, untuk bergerak ke, untuk present, lighting dia, keadaan lampu dia sesuai ke tidak, screen and sound system setup, screen ada ke tidak, sound system okey ke tidak. Jangan masa tu terkiar-kiar baru nak on laptop, sambung laptop, projector tak menyala, mikrofon tak dengar, tak boleh. It is important to make sure that the room is set up correctly before your presentation. Being organized will help you to be calm and enable you to focus on getting your message across to the audience. Know the audience. Before your presentation, research about your audience. Sebelum kita present tu, tengok nak present dekat siapa. Budak sekolah rendah ke, budak sekolah menengah ke, kepada rakan sekerja ke, kepada rakan sekelas ke, kepada rakan kilang ke, ataupun kepada bos, director. This is because it is not easy to speak to a group of strangers. Some questions when researching about your audience. Bila kita nak research audience tu, apa kita nak kena tahu? Who are they? Are they your classmates? What is their age? How many people are in the audience? Jadi, bila kita tahu audience kita ni siapa, kita dapati senanglah bila kita nak bercakap. Don't forget to greet your audience and make them feel welcome. Okay, ada satu video ni kita tengok sama-sama.
The first rule of public speaking, know your audience. But how do you go about knowing people you haven't met before? Well, in this video, I bring you a few questions to ask to know your audience before your speech or presentation so you can better connect with them. Our audience goes through a range of emotions throughout our speech. Ideally, we want them to be interested in the beginning, we want to leave them feeling motivated or inspired at the very end, and we want to keep them engaged throughout our speech or presentation. We are going to use these three emotions as our roadmap to craft questions for our audience analysis. To make them interested, first let's begin with a quick audience profile. Who are they and what do they care about? Let's assume that you are speaking to a bunch of co-workers on a Monday morning versus speaking to a bunch of clients. By asking the question, what do they care about? You now better understand the priorities of your audience, and so you can better structure the opening, the hook, and the introduction for your presentation. Next, we're going to ask the question, are they required to attend this presentation or are they attending by choice? This helps you understand the intentions of your audience. If they are required to attend, then you need to work extra hard in your opening to earn their attention. The next step to profiling your audience is to gauge the average knowledge in your audience. What do they already know? This question becomes important for how you draft your introduction. If you are speaking to a group of experts or leaders, but you have the fundamental basics in your introduction, then you risk losing them because they are no longer interested in that information. By asking the question, what do they already know, you are able to start off strong on a level that actually matches the knowledge of your audience. And now on the flip side, let's ask the question, what do they need to know? If you are presenting a new idea or a new concept, a new piece of data, how can you best educate your audience so they can better appreciate that idea or concept? Now that we know how to keep our audience interested, I've always believed to start with the end in mind. To leave our audience feeling motivated, inspired, and pumped, let's ask a few questions about what really motivates them. What are their challenges and frustrations? And what is their ideal solution? By answering these questions, you can now pick and choose which stories, which examples, which anecdotes to add in your presentation that directly reflect these challenges. You can then go on to offer up a solution that addresses or alleviates these frustrations. This brings us to the most challenging part of a speech or presentation. Even if you are off to a great start and have an amazing story to tell, it doesn't help if you are losing your audience in the middle of your presentation. So how can we keep our audience engaged? Let's look at a few reasons why we may lose our audience. Do they have a preconceived notion or a bias? What would they disagree on? It always helps to consider an opposing perspective. If there's a reason why someone may object or disagree with what you have to say, you are better off mentioning that up front instead of having this thought lingering in the minds of your audience and distracting them. Another factor that affects audience engagement is their mood. What is the likely mood of your audience? At what time of the day are you speaking? We've all experienced that post-lunch slump where we've struggled to keep our eyes open. So if you feel like your audience may be tired or hungry or anxious, then you need to dial up that energy level, be more interactive to keep them engaged. With these questions, you now know your audience. You are better equipped to keep them interested, engaged, and inspired. I want to hear from you. Has there ever been a time when you felt like you just didn't connect with a speaker? If so, let me know why in the comments below. You never know if your comment might help one of us draft a better presentation. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.
Number 3 is know your material. Before you start your presentation, it is best to familiarize yourself with your topic. Biasakan diri awak dengan topik yang awak nak cakap tu. If you are not familiar and uncomfortable with your topic or material, your nervousness will increase. One tip to help you with this is to prepare cue cards. Kena ada cue cards lah. You can use cue cards to jot down your points and refer to the cards during your presentation. Tak salah kalau kita tengah present tu kita ada pegang card. It also can help you to keep track of your points. Let's watch this video together.
People ask you to do a presentation, for instance, next Wednesday. Now, what is the first thing you do? You open up your PowerPoint and you start drawing up slides, right? Wrong. All you need to start you off with is a white sheet of paper and a pen. Then you start thinking about your key messages and put them on the sheet. Now, you're the expert, so you want to tell your audience everything you know about your subject, up to the smallest detail, because you think it's important. Now, let me tell you that this sort of presentations has no effect at all. So make sure that you pick out 3 key messages, no more than 3. And why 3? Well, our brain is able to remember 3 key messages without any extra effort. So you better pick out those messages which are the answer to the question, which information do I want my audience to take home with them when they leave the room? Bearing in mind that your audience has one question as well. What is in it for me? Why am I listening to this person? What can he tell me that could be of use to me? Once you've identified your 3 key messages, go and look for examples to illustrate your point. And in general, we distinguish between roughly rational examples, such as graphs, diagrams, and charts, and concrete examples which immediately link up with the listener's everyday situation, examples that he can identify with. Rational examples help you create credibility. For instance, if I tell you that you should pay attention to your body language because it is one of the main factors for success, you can either believe what I say or not. However, if I show you this graph and I tell you that my information is based on research carried out by an American university professor called Dr. Morabian, who for many years studied the impact of verbal and non-verbal communication, you will be more likely to believe my words. Let's say that it adds to the credibility of my message. As a concrete example, I usually go with the young boy who says to his parents, "I'm not mad," to point out the importance of a good link between content and the body language that your message comes with. Okay, now the middle part of your presentation has been drawn up. It's time to find a good introduction. How are you going to start your presentation? Make sure you avoid cliché opening lines such as, "Hello, my name is such and such and I'm here to talk about yada yada yada." All that does is put your audience in a presentation mode going, okay, we're stuck here for more of the same thing. Try, however, to come up with a hook that makes your audience go, "Hey, I want to know more about this." It can be anything. It can be a quote, a research result, an anecdote, a question or a quiz, a short story, an interesting article you've read, a personal experience, an exercise, really anything to keep you off the beaten track. Okay, now you have your introduction, you have your basic presentation structure. All that remains for you to do is to round it up. And that's the easy part, really. Just repeat your 3 take-home messages without adding new information to them. All you wanted to say has been said. Now, if you really want to come across as a clever speaker, you can add a little part at the very end of your talk where you make a reference to your introduction. That makes a circle round. And only then, good people, you are allowed to open up your PowerPoint and start creating your slides. Got it? Circle is round. Back to the introduction.
Point number 4, relax. Remember to relax before you start your presentation. Relax, jangan gelabah, okay? Take a deep breath and do simple stretching exercises to ease your tension and nervousness. During your presentation, do not rush to finish your speech. If you are rushing, you might be more nervous as you are trying to finish your speech as soon as possible.
We get it. Presentations are hard, and sometimes it's not easy to calm your nerves. This video will provide you with 5 tips on how to manage nervousness during your presentation to present like a pro. Tip 1. Plan your pauses. If you're one of those people that talks super quickly, this tip is for you. Think about when might be a good time to pause. Maybe after a quote, between slides, or after a big chunk of content. Tip 2. Bring a drink with you. Taking a sip of your drink forces you to pause because you have to swallow it before you start talking again. Plus, it also helps if you get a dry throat from talking a lot. Tip 3. Try some mindfulness strategies. You might plant your feet firmly on the ground, touch your fingertips together with your hands behind your back, or take 3 deep breaths right before you present. These strategies can help take away focus from your nervousness and put it back onto you in the present moment. Tip 4. Reframe your thinking from something negative to something positive. Remind yourself that you are nervous because you actually care. Caring is a good thing, and because you actually care about your content, you're probably going to be more engaging as a presenter. Tip 5. If you are feeling brave, try videotaping yourself for extra feedback. Videotaping yourself allows you to check your body movement, listen to your voice, and see your slides. You can see what you like, what you don't, and think about how you might change. Try these tips next time you present, and present like a pro. Remember, it's probably best to try only 1 or 2 tips at a time so you don't become overwhelmed. If you want more tips or practice, feel free to book an appointment at the library. They can help you strengthen your presentation and provide feedback. Need help? Email, chat, or drop by.
Okay, tip number 5. Visualize yourself giving your speech. Imagine yourself speaking, your voice loud, clear and assured. When you visualize yourself as successful, you will be successful. Kita bayangkanlah kita di-present dekat depan kelas tu. And tip number 6, remember that people want you to succeed. Your audience wants you to be interesting, stimulating, informative and entertaining. People are not there to judge you, but they are there to listen to your speech. Don't apologize. If you mention your nervousness or apologize for any problems during your speech, you may be calling the audience's attention to something they haven't noticed. Maknanya, pendengar tak perasan kita buat silap tu. Tapi kalau kita buat, kita minta maaf. Oh, minta maaf lah ya, sorry lah tadi, sorry. Jadi orang tahulah kesalahan kita, kelemahan kita tak nak tu. If you make a mistake, do not apologize, just go on with your speech. Teruskan aja. This is because you can always restate your points to your audience. Tip number 8, concentrate on the message. Remember that you are presenting to share your ideas. Do not think too much of your anxieties. This can help to reduce nervousness. Focus. Jangan fikir-fikir sangat pasal kita punya gugup dekat dalam tu, kita punya gelabah tu. Tak payah, jangan tunjuk kat orang. Number 9, turn nervousness into positive energy. Turn your negative energy into positive energy. Be enthusiastic to present, as this might be your only chance to talk in front of an audience. If you are too nervous, pretend that you are confident and excited to present. Like the saying goes, fake it till you make it. And the last one is gain experience. Experience builds confidence, which is the key to effective speaking. Lagi banyak kita present, lagi bagus presentation kita tu. Grab the chance to present either in class or publicly. By doing this, you will get the experience talking in front of an audience. Jadi itulah dia topik number 9, page 24. Sebelum saya akhiri video ni, ada satu lagi PowerPoint yang saya nak kongsi dengan awak. Waktu kita buat topik non-verbal communication, dia ada bahagian yang ni, grammar section, speech transitions. Okey, mari kita mulakan. When listening to a speech, have you ever wondered how does this relate to that? Felt the speaker jumped randomly from one point to the next or even gotten totally lost? Pernah tak bila dengar satu pengucapan tu, awak tak tahu apa benda yang awak dengar? Itulah maksud dia tu. If you have experienced any of the mentioned situation, there is a very good chance that the speaker failed to use appropriate speech transitions. Speech transitions. Apa benda speech transitions tu? Jom kita belajar. Speech transitions are magical words and phrases that help your argument flow smoothly. Speech transitions can be one word, a phrase, or a full sentence. In a written speech, speech transitions are generally found at the start of paragraphs. Speech transitions smooth over the boundary between two ideas and reveal the relationship between words. Having a suitable speech transition, it is easier for the audience to understand your argument. Without speech transitions, the audience may be confused as how one point relates to another, and they may think you are randomly jumping between points. There are many different types of speech transition. Here are a few. Dah kita ajar dalam kelas dah. Transition between similar ideas or points. Likewise, similarly, this is just like. In a similar way, we can see the same thing if we consider bila kita nak berubah, kita nak berganjak daripada satu idea kepada satu idea yang lain, kita boleh gunakan speech transition yang tertulis kat sini, yang saya dah bacakan tadi kan. Transition between contrasting ideas or points. Idea itu berlawanan. However, walau bagaimanapun, conversely, on the contrary, on the other side, on the other hand, if we flip that around, yet we cannot ignore the opposing argument. If we examine the opposite side, we see ini nak speech transition yang menggambarkan sesuatu yang berlawanan. Awak boleh guna ni. Transition to elaborate upon an idea. Kita nak kembangkan idea tu. Also, moreover, in addition, furthermore, in other words, not only that, but transition to numbered ideas or points. Ini paling senang, paling mudah. First, the first step is, ataupun firstly. Second, secondly. The second step is third. Thirdly, the third step is last. Lastly, the last step is. Boleh hafal kan? Transition to show cause-effect relationship. Therefore, as a result, consequently, for that reason, this is important because. Transition to an example. For instance, example tu sebagai contoh ya. As an example, To illustrate this, what's an example of this? But does this happen in real life? Yes. Transition to a supporting demonstration. Now that we've covered the theory, let's see it in action. To reinforce what we've learned, let's see a demonstration. I've prepared a demonstration to show how this works. Let's see a demonstration which applies what we've learned. Transition to a supporting quotation. Somebody said, in 1968, somebody said, this idea was expressed clearly by somebody who said. Transition from introduction, attention getter into speech. Let's begin. Mari kita mulakan. To get started, let's examine. Let's get started talking about. Now that we've given an overview, let's start with transition from speech into conclusion. Ni nak tutup lah. For a short speech, you might conclude with a single, in short, in summary, in conclusion. In a longer presentation, your conclusion might include a review of the key points. Let's summarize the key lessons. Transition to another speaker. Kalau kita bercakap berdua, bertiga dalam satu kumpulan. In the team presentation, it is necessary to transfer control between speakers. The abrupt way to do this is to simply have one person stop talking and then have the other person start talking. Jangan tiba-tiba berhenti, lepas tu kawan lain sambung, tak nak. However, to pass the verbal baton to the next speaker, X, we should use phrases such as, to talk about our next topic, we have Mr. I'll pass the microphone to siapa who will describe. Transition back to an earlier point. When you need to review or talk back to an earlier idea, even to add additional information mentioned earlier, make sure to indicate it. Kita nak cerita balik berkaitan dengan point sebelumnya. But for example, after a break or returning from an unplanned interruption, we can use phrases below. Let's return, let's visit, let's revisit, let's go back to, we introduced X earlier, let's explore that further now. Alright, let's avoid faulty transitions. When executed well, speech transitions help to make a speech understandable. When executed poorly, speech transitions can convey doubtful meaning and frustrate the audiences. Beware these 4 types of faulty transitions. Jangan buat benda ni Discount transition, incompatible transition, tangential transition, and missing transition. Discount transition. This faulty transition occurs when a speaker begins counting the main points. Nak mula kira-kira kan? Firstly, secondly, next, thirdly, tu tak boleh. Faulty counting can also occur when a speaker tries to number both the main points and the sub-points and gets mixed up. Jangan salah-salahkan number point kita. Incompatible transition. This occurs when a speaker uses a transition word or phrase which does not match the relationship. For example, started with the word however but then followed with an example. Imagine signaling to the left but turning your car to the right. Using incompatible transitions leave the same effect. It confuses people. Mengirukan, jangan Tangential transition. Transitional phrases like that reminds me, ironically or as an aside, are dangerous because they often lead to an off-topic diversion which blurs the focus of the speech and wastes time for you and your audience. Missing transition. This faulty transition is the most common of all. Paling biasa yang ni. Because when a speaker abruptly changes from one point to another without using any transition words or phrases, the audience is left confused and lost because points get jumbled up. Jadi itu saja, janganlah kita membuat kesalahan waktu kita membuat speech transition. Jadi pelajar, saya tak sabar ni nak tunggu awak punya draft. Ada 2-3 orang dah hantar. Jadi itulah saja. Saya harap semua pelajar dah bersedia untuk menghantar PB. Peringatan ni biasalah kita bagi tahu dan juga bersedialah untuk menyambung kelas pada tahun 2021. So untuk itu terima kasih.